The melody drifted through the crowded mall like a ghost from the past, stopping Eliza Montgomery mid-stride. Around her, shoppers continued their hurried pace, but she stood frozen, her designer briefcase hanging limply from her fingers. How could she hear this song, this particular arrangement, after 15 years? It was impossible. Yet the notes pulled at her heart with the same bittersweet ache she tried so desperately to forget. If you're touched by this story of lost love and second chances, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that remind us it's never too late to reconnect with what matters most. James Sullivan's fingers moved across the keys with practiced precision, though his mind was elsewhere, calculating the hours until his daughter's dance recital, wondering if he'd remembered to sign her permission slip for the field trip next week. Playing piano at the mall wasn't exactly where he'd imagined his music career would take him, but it paid the bills and let him be there for Sophie when she got home from school. The song he played now was one he rarely performed in public, too personal, too painful, but today, something had compelled him to let it flow. Eliza couldn't breathe. The world around her blurred as memories flooded back. A small college apartment, the scent of coffee and paint, a boy with tousled hair hunched over a keyboard, working through the night to compose a melody just for her. "This is how loving you feels," he had said, playing the piece that now echoed through the mall's atrium. James. Her James. Before ambition and opportunity had pulled them in different directions. Before she became CEO of Montgomery Industries and he disappeared from her life, she moved toward the sound as if in a trance, weaving through the crowd until she could see the grand piano positioned near the central fountain. The man playing had his back to her, his shoulders slightly hunched, his dark hair now flecked with premature gray. But she would know those hands anywhere, the long fingers, the way his right pinky curved slightly when he reached for certain chords. A small girl sat on a bench nearby, swinging her legs and drawing in a sketchbook, occasionally glancing up at the pianist with unmistakable adoration. James felt someone watching him, not the casual glance of passing shoppers, but an intent gaze that seemed to penetrate the bubble he created when he played. He finished the piece with the familiar diminuendo that had always reminded him of a whispered goodbye, then turned on the bench. Their eyes met across 15 years of silence. "James," Eliza whispered, the name feeling both foreign and achingly familiar on her lips. He stood slowly, disbelief etched across features that had grown more defined with age but were still unmistakably his. "Eliza? Is that really you?" The little girl looked up from her drawing, curious about the elegant woman in the business suit who was staring at her father as though she'd seen a ghost. "Daddy?" she asked, sliding off her bench and moving to stand beside him, her small hand slipping protectively into his. The simple word jolted Eliza back to reality. Of course he had moved on. Built a life. Had a family. What had she expected? "I'm sorry," she said, taking a step backward. "I heard the song and I didn't mean to interrupt." James squeezed his daughter's hand. "Sophie, this is an old friend of mine. From college." He looked back at Eliza, his eyes taking in the tailored suit, the expensive watch, the polished exterior that couldn't quite hide the flicker of vulnerability in her expression. "Eliza Montgomery. She's the one I wrote that song for, a long time ago." Sophie's eyes widened. "The princess song? The one you play when you're sad?" James flushed slightly. "I'm not always sad when I play it, sophomore." "Yes, you are," Sophie insisted with a child's blunt honesty. She turned to Eliza with newfound interest. "Are you really a princess?" Eliza laughed, the sound breaking some of the tension. "No, definitely not a princess. Just someone who knew your dad when we were younger." "She's being modest," James said, his voice softening. "She's actually the CEO of a major company now. I saw your picture in Business Weekly last month." Eliza felt a strange pang that he had seen her there, had known something of her life while she had lost track of him entirely. "It's not as glamorous as it sounds," she said. "Mostly just meetings and more meetings." An awkward silence fell between them, filled with unasked questions and unspoken regrets. Do you want to get coffee? The words tumbled from Eliza's mouth before she could reconsider. I mean, if you're not busy. If that's okay. James hesitated, glancing at his watch. I actually need to get Sophie to her dance class in 30 minutes. Oh, of course, Eliza said quickly, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. I understand completely. But tomorrow, he continued, I'm free tomorrow afternoon. If you're still interested. Hope flickered in Eliza's chest, a sensation she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Tomorrow would be perfect. They exchanged numbers, their fingers brushing briefly during the transaction, sending an electric current of memory between them. As Eliza walked away, she heard Sophie's voice drift after her. Daddy, is she the one from your stories? The one who got away? Eliza didn't hear James's answer, but she found herself smiling for the first time in months. The next day, sitting across from each other in a quiet cafe, the years between them seemed both vast and insignificant. James told her about his brief career as a studio musician, his marriage to a fellow artist who had died from cancer when Sophie was just 3, his decision to step back from the competitive music scene to raise his daughter. Eliza shared her meteoric rise through the corporate world, the sacrifices she'd made along the way, the emptiness she sometimes felt despite her success. I never stopped playing your song, James admitted, stirring his coffee absently. It became something of a ritual. A way to remember who I used to be. I never stopped listening for it, Eliza confessed. Even though I thought I'd never hear it again. Their coffee grew cold as they talked, rediscovering each other and discovering who they had become. When James mentioned he needed to pick up Sophie, Eliza surprised herself by asking if she could come along. She'd like that, James said, his smile reaching his eyes. She hasn't stopped asking questions about you. Over the following weeks, Eliza found herself drawn into their world, Sophie's dance recitals and school projects, James's small apartment filled with music and laughter, dinners where business calls went unanswered for the first time in years. She watched James patiently helping Sophie with homework, teaching her simple melodies on their second-hand piano, braiding her hair with surprising dexterity. She saw in him the same passion and kindness that had captured her heart in college, now deepened by the responsibilities he had shouldered. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Eliza's demanding schedule created tensions. James worried about Sophie becoming attached to someone who might disappear again. And the ghosts of their past, the choices that had separated them, required confrontation. You chose your career over us, James said during one painful conversation. How do I know you won't do it again? I was 22 and terrified, Eliza countered. My father had just died, the company was failing, and everyone was looking to me to save it. I didn't know how to balance both worlds. And now? Now I know what matters, she said quietly. I've built the company. I've proven myself. But success feels hollow without someone to share it with. Slowly, they began to rebuild trust. Eliza rearranged her schedule to be present for important moments in Sophie's life. James opened himself to the possibility of loving again, despite the risks. Sophie, with a child's resilience and wisdom, created space in her heart for this new person who made her father smile more often. 6 months after their chance encounter, Eliza sat in the front row of a small community theater, watching James perform his first solo concert in years. When he played their song, now expanded into a full composition that told the story of loss, rediscovery, and hope, tears streamed down her face. Backstage afterward, with Sophie bouncing excitedly between them, James took Eliza's hand. I've been thinking, he said hesitantly. About us. About what comes next. Eliza's heart raced. What do you want to come next? I want to stop playing this song like it's an ending, he said. I want it to be a beginning instead. 1 year to the day after Eliza had stopped in the mall, they stood together in a garden surrounded by friends and family. Sophie, serving as flower girl and self-appointed wedding planner, beamed as she watched her father and Eliza exchange vows. The pianist played a familiar melody, their melody, but this time, it didn't fade to a whisper at the end. Instead, it transformed into something new, something hopeful, something that promised more to come. Eliza Montgomery Sullivan didn't give up her position as CEO, but she did reshape the company culture to value balance and family. James continued to teach music and compose, finding a renewed passion for performance with Eliza's encouragement. Sophie gained not just a stepmother but a role model who showed her that strength and vulnerability could coexist beautifully. And sometimes, in quiet moments when the three of them were together, James would play their song, no longer a reminder of what was lost, but a celebration of what had been found again. Life doesn't always give second chances. Sometimes people drift apart for good reasons, and paths that diverge never reconnect. But sometimes, if you're listening carefully, you might hear a melody from your past playing in an unexpected place. And if you're brave enough to follow it, you might discover that the most important journeys are the ones that lead us back to what matters most. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to our channel. Remember that sometimes the most beautiful music in our lives comes from the notes we thought were lost forever. Share in the comments if you've ever reconnected with someone important from your past. Every story deserves to be heard.